Hey, I wanted to speak with all of you for a couple minutes as so many people are getting ready to spend time with their families and loved ones and maybe travel this week. And so, first off, I want to encourage all of us that are able to see this video to just cultivate some genuine gratitude that justice has finally been served in the Ahmaud Arbery case and the Charlottesville neo-Nazi case. And let's just know as a beloved community that while the white supremacist judge in the Rittenhouse case may have temporarily delayed justice from being served, he, the cops, and the murderer Rittenhouse will in due course be brought to justice through the courts. Make no mistake about it. The price they'll pay has to be high, has to be dear, as were their victims' lives, whose families are going to have to begin this year's celebration of lights at Hanukkah without their beloved family members. And so our hearts go out to them as their families, have to mourn their first Hanukkah without their loved ones. And for the rest of us, let's just stop for a moment and consider all of those innermost thoughts and deep emotions and hurts and fears that we carry so closely, that are tucked away in the darkest, deepest recesses of our hearts, the things that make us most vulnerable. And let's remember the words of the great philosopher Alan Watts, who reminded us that those most private thoughts, those most deep emotions, are not actually our own. Because you see, we think in terms of languages and images that we didn't even invent. So we're using a construct created by someone else, which was given to us by our society. And so those thoughts aren't necessarily our own, therefore they're not necessarily true. And let's remember that we go through life burdened by this idea, a malignant idea impressed upon us by the manipulative colonialist patriarchy, that we're here to accomplish something beyond ourselves. So as we go into this holiday season of thankfulness and the season of lights and the season of celebrating indigenous peoples, let's realize the folly in buying into such a destructive mindset, and look at the look at the lives of the people who are in power in that imperialist segment of the world's population, the princes and kings and queens and princesses, presidents and religious rulers. They don't struggle or strive to achieve anything. They simply accept their birthright, and so should we. You see, for years, I bought into that same paradigm of shame and struggle. I rushed around in a constant state of low-key panic, believing that if I could just achieve that next financial benchmark, write that next book, buy that next house or car or boat, then I would have achieved what I was meant to do. I would be able to finally be proud of who and what I am. And after building and losing a 6- and 7-figure income 2 times, I found myself at an ashram where I began to buy into the notion that I had to achieve the approval and recognition from the guru, to become a great yogi or yogini, to start throwing my life into serving and using my resources to build AIDS clinics and wellness centers, which was all great. But again, I lost the value of real service and fell into the need to win approval and recognition. You know, muddy water, it said, becomes crystal clear when we still ourselves and leave it alone. And so I stopped aspiring. I started teaching. I stopped aspiring and started writing. I knew that I could never be the kind of person who allowed their hunger for approval and attention of my teachers and gurus and those people who had an influence over me to muddy my waters. So I rejected the notion of primitive cultures and religious institutions. I wouldn't try to impose unhealthy ideas about becoming celibate or abstaining from eating meat or whatever, while secretly violating those same foolish and manipulative principles in my own life, as so many of my teachers have done. I wouldn't focus on building empires when small things done with great love, as St. Teresa tells us, could literally move mountains with a whole lot less people. So you see, when we fall into a river, we don't try to grab at the water in order to survive, because that'll only lead us to drowning. Instead, we relax into the movement and the current of that water, and we begin to float and swim, and we simply move with the current. And that's all life wants of us, not to do, but to be. The great Buddhist sage Milarepa would say, why struggle? If a cure exists, why would you worry about the disease? If none exists, what good is it going to do to worry about the disease? Refuse to be part of the cult mindset that was created by and remains directed by the patriarchy, which, by the way, often pretends or feigns the appearance of the mother when it wants to manipulate those who might otherwise recognize the toxic masculinity in its raw form. Let's just reject the mindset that the patriarchy wants us to adopt. Let's let go of the thoughts and the fears and the actions that add to the stress of needing to become this or that. You're already a fucking masterpiece, whether you realize it or not. So why not take the easy road and just realize it? Color outside the lines if it brings you joy. Laugh when the world's being serious if that's how you feel. Respect others' boundaries, but never let them draw your boundaries for you. And cultivate the simple practice of gratitude for being in this precious lifetime with no strings attached. The only thing we're meant to do, as far as I'm concerned, with this life is to live it, to experience it. And if we can learn to serve others and treat the world with compassion and forgiveness along the way, then we'll be that much richer for it. Alan Watts again said, this is the real secret of life, to be completely engaged with what you're doing in the here and now. And instead of calling it work, realize it's play. And that's my wish for you during this beginning of this wondrous season of celebrating light and darkness, movement and rest, death and regeneration. Just know that winter always follows the harvest. So there will be difficult days ahead, but spring always follows winter. And so we know that the regeneration, the rebirth, and the end to the suffering is coming. Be grateful for one another. If you haven't told the people in your life that you love them, do it now. Don't wait until tomorrow. Don't wait until Thursday or Friday or next month or next year. And from my heart to yours, if you're able to see this video, if you're hearing this message, know that you're seen, that you're appreciated, and you're